Hi all, this is Kelly with the Appalachian Booksmith, and I'm in the process of making a series of 4 journals that have a sewing theme. And the reason I'm doing this, first off, I love to sew, and I like everything about the notions and stuff, and I do collect some of the antique notions and whatnot. The second reason I'm doing this is because I haven't found that style of journaling or junk journal making for myself. With my art background, I find myself wanting to do things maybe a little more radical, but I've been holding back a little bit. So I thought if I do a series of journals in the same theme, but playing a little bit with materials, I think I'm going to find that place. I also have an Easter journal coming up that is being done with some cutouts and some dolls and things like that, a little more collage art that's a little more maybe surreal. So we'll see how that goes. So what I'm doing today is I'm making the cover of this journal, and it is going to be my one that is just a basic sewing theme, and it's going to have a 3-dimensional collage style cover, and I'm going to be using these images from Creative Embellishments. And I did one similar to this with a steampunk, and everyone liked it, but the complaint was I didn't show everybody every step. So I thought, well, let's go through it. We'll go through every single step, and hopefully that'll work out good for everyone. But so I'm starting with a pre-made book that I am repurposing. The reason I'm doing this is because I have made them with books, pre-made books or repurposed books, and I've made them from scratch. The ones I've made from scratch have warped, and that makes me a little nervous. So I'm trying to do this without any warping is my goal. So the first thing I did was, of course, I took the insides out of the book, and as I had to chuckle. I saw this, The Dark Romance of Dian Fossey. Dian Fossey is one of my favorite scientists, anthropologists, geologists, naturalists, you name it. I just really admire her. I've got a few scientists. William Shoemaker would probably be the next one that I really admire. Both of them, of course, have passed away. But I thought that was funny when I saw that. I thought, okay, this book is meant to be. So the first thing I did was I gutted it, and I made sure I got all these pieces out. I've noticed that in some of my journal making, if a little bit of that book fabric sticks over the side, when I'm doing my end papers and sewing in my signatures, it makes it look a little wonky. So now I'm a little more aggressive about tearing all of this apart and getting this uniform. Now, when I tore it apart, this got really flimsy on me. So I decided I was going to reinforce it. First, I thought I'd reinforce it with some book board, but then I thought, no, by the time I get fabric on here, I get Tyvek on here, I get end papers, all that stuff on here, it doesn't need book board in here. So what I did is I went into my scrap bin, and it's a relatively thin piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to, I measured for it to just fit in here, and I don't want it up against the board. Even though it's small, I don't want it against this book board because I don't want it to keep it from opening and shutting. I don't want it snug. I want the book to open pretty freely. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac, and I'm just going to glue this in, and I'm sure you've seen umpteen people do this. If you haven't, of course, just done it yourself. And I go all the way around the edges, and then I scribble on the inside. And the reason I use Fabri-Tac is that Fabri-Tac is pretty sturdy. It also does really well with paper to paper, which is what I'm doing right now. This is paper to paper. So I'm simply just going to put it in there, make sure it's pretty even. And you can see I left a little space, and that's okay. I am going to be eventually putting a hole in this and adding, it's going to be a tassel, but not quite the same as your usual tassel. I'm going to take old clothesline clips, and I'm going to hang them from the eyelet, and I'm going to wrap them in different laces and trims. Since it's a sewing theme, I thought, well, that's a good idea. That'll work out really good. So what I do next, because I don't know if I just get paranoid, but I went ahead and cut a piece of Tyvek anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch past where the book board is for the front and back cover. And I am going to glue this in here, and that, I just feel so much better just giving it just that next level of strength. And this is from a mailer, and this is from a used mailer. So you got to make sure if you're using these, don't go to the post office and get brand new ones. That's a bad idea. And you want to make sure that you're using ones that either you have used or someone has shipped to you, or if you have a friend who works in a place that gets shipments a lot, you know, I lucked out. I've got someone who can give them to me. But make sure that you are not, I think it might even be illegal to go get them from the post office, but I could just be making that up. So again, you want to make sure you get this glued really good. And if it doesn't go all the way to the edges, I don't panic, because there are going to be end papers over top of this, and there'll be a piece of fabric going down the spine covering this also. It's just that extra bit of strength. And even just now when I was holding that up through the light, because I do have the window, well, the blinds open right here, I could see fibers all through it. And those are the fibers that make it strong, keep it from ripping. I mean, if you try to, I don't have a piece in front of me right now, I just glued it down. But if you try to tear the tie back, it's not going to tear. It just isn't. You do definitely have to cut it. It's funny how that works with some things. Earlier today, I was putting together signatures for a basic journal that I'm going to do the Coptic stitch. It'll have just a front and back. And I used all handmade natural papers with the little decal edges. And they have to be torn. They do not cut well at all. They don't like your all your cutting systems and stuff. They just kind of get stuck in there and they jam it up, and then you got to replace the blades and stuff. So, okay, so that's the first part of this. Now, once I have the spine reinforced and I'm feeling good about it, then I'm going to cover this whole thing with fabric. The reason I'm covering this completely with fabric is because I'm going to be painting on it. I've discovered that when I paint on the book cover, even though this is book cloth, this is fabric too, I've had trouble with the paint later peeling. Now, I probably would have had less trouble with this. This has a decent amount of texture, more than I would maybe a book that has a shiny cover, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So what I did is I have muslin, and muslin is not that expensive, and it's all wrinkled. I don't care if it's wrinkled. Actually, I don't mind if I even get some of the fabric wrinkles on it, since it is a sewing book. But I just went ahead and took the fabric and I tore it, and of course I tore it way too big. I'm not going to need this much fabric. But the nice thing about using the muslin is that it's very easy to push it into crevices and stuff, which again, it's less important to push everything into crevices with this journal as much as it is some of the other ones I do. So I use art glitter glue to attach this, and I finally did get it right. Of course, the book Vandal, that's who it is. That's where I learned to use art glitter glue to put fabric on books. And I really like it because it really gets into the crevices. And I put it into these little containers. If I know I'm going to be using a lot, just pour it in here. They're at Walmart. They have lids on them. I can cover them up. And I always start with the spine. And I mean, it doesn't have to be incredibly thick, but I'm literally just going to paint this on. And then I'm going to add the pieces I'm going to add put the fabric down. And then as I go along, I will add more glue and I will put the fabric down. I do try to make it a pretty decent line so that I know like it's going to about the same spot, so I don't overdo the glue. I just finished a Valentine's journal it's just so sweet. I'm in love with it. But I had an area where I didn't think I had enough glue and I couldn't tell where it was going, and it really globbed the glue underneath of it. Now, it didn't hurt the integrity of the book, but for me, I would have liked it to look a little neater than it did. So I ended up having to do some techniques with painting to cover that stuff up. And it's not super forgiving, but as you can see, I'm able to pull some of those wrinkles out. But again, the wrinkles aren't going to bother me in this, because I think before I lay down the actual, start putting on the embellishments on this cover, I think I am going to lay some fabric on it and glue that fabric in place and kind of wrinkle it up a little bit. That's what I'm thinking about doing, but not 100% sure. But I think that's where I'm headed. And again, I'm just going to keep going. And I'm not speeding through this because I did have requests. I had private messages, and one person just put the message right on there. You know, I really would, it would have been nice if you would have told us what products you were using, gone through more. So that's pretty much what I'm doing right now, is going with a little more, just letting you see everything I'm doing. So I don't know if you're from any part of the world right now getting snow, but we have had a decent amount of snow here in West Virginia. It's affected school. I'm a school teacher. And here, see, here's a string in here, and I don't even care that string's in there. I'm fine with that. That's not going to bother me one bit. What is going to bother me, though, is that doesn't seem to want to be laying quite well, but that's okay. It's almost not, it looks like there's a bubble there where the fabric is not wanting to stick. That would bother me because I don't want anything lifting. So, but yeah, we missed school last week. The kids had 1 day of school. Teachers had 2. And I really don't want a repeat of that. And I heard there's snow coming today, so I'm hopeful that it's not going to be too terribly bad. Maybe just a dusting so we can get, you know, we can go to school tomorrow. I'm excited. My students have been asking me for a science lab, and we had been redoing cabinets. We got all new cabinets, and we used different rooms for storage, and my cabinets in the science lab all had to be emptied. And then because I have so much space, a lot of people in the building were able to use that to put their stuff while they're waiting for the cabinets to get put together. And unfortunately, I'm just now getting my science lab put together because I was the last one to get my shelves in, and the last person, and of course everyone's storage was in mine, so I'm kind of the last person to get there, and my students are getting a little impatient with me, and I don't blame them. You know, science labs are fun. So I'm hoping this week to do an exploratory with them, almost like an apology, like, so sorry. Okay, that looks pretty good. And looking at this, I have way too much fabric, but you know, you'd rather have more than not enough. So I'm going to flip this over, and I am going to trim this. And I have no idea if this is all going to be in screen, but I definitely do not need this much fabric on the sides. So I'm going to trim it to, I don't know, I'll leave about 1 inch or so, all the way around, because there are going to be end papers. And then I'm going to kind of miter the corners a little bit, and then go all the way around. It's like around, oh, there's a glob of glue. That's lovely. Again, this doesn't have to be neat. I probably could have taken a little extra time when I was preparing for this video and cut this a little smaller, but instead I just ripped it. Literally, that's what I want to do now. It's my instinct, but I'll go ahead and cut. I remember when I first started quilting, and I joined a quilting group, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And I think the youngest person there. I think I was in my early 20s, and I watched what they were doing, and I was like, this is awesome. And they were taking a trip to the Amish country when I first joined, and I decided I'm going to go too. And I thought while I'm there, they were talking about all these great places to get quilting fabric. And so I went through a bunch of different patterns, figured out what I wanted to make, and I went to the Amish country with him, and I went to the first quilt shop, found a fabric I liked, and the expression I was told was priceless when they tore my fabric. I was like, what? You know, she made this little cut, and then this lady just picks it up and rips it, and I thought, wow, that's not cool. But of course it was cool. It worked out just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this up and over. And the last time I did this, I used my Fabri-Tac, but I have just a little bit left in this and I want to use it up. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this. And again, the nice thing is this is all going to be covered with end papers. So it doesn't have to look or be in any way spectacular. So I'm just gonna pull this up, and I want to pull it pretty tight, start in the middle, and just pull it up and around pretty tight. I can see glue from the other side blobbing through. It's not going to hurt anything. This one's, if it was on the front, I'd be a little upset after my Valentine's one had that blob of glue that showed after it dried. It even affected the paint a little bit. So I was a little unhappy with that. So as you can see on this side, how nice and crisp that is. It looks really good. So I'm going to do the other side. Like so. I'm hoping this is all on screen. I'm sitting here doing this for myself and nobody's seeing it because you just hear me rambling. Nothing showing up. It's kind of like I have. Same thing, and this is a little flimsy, this, like I said, the spine. So just make sure you don't pull so much. You don't want to curl that up. You want to make sure you want to pull tight, but you don't want to misshape your spine. It will be covered if you do a little bit, though. It's not like, I think this is the most forgiving art form is journal making. So there we go. See, it did adjust a little bit. I got it pulled a little too tight on the first one, but that's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to do the ends. And before I do the ends, I'm going to pull the corners up and in a little bit. You know what? I may not. I might just fold. I'm going to be painting all of this. I think what I'm going to do, I know I'm going to do it because I'm doing it. I think I'm just going to fold these over once like that. And again, the art glitter glue is so good about this kind of stuff. So I'm just folding them over like you're doing like a Christmas wrapping. I just folded that right over. It's like I'm wrapping a Christmas package. And then I'm gonna go through, like I said, I'm about to run out of this glue. So this is actually working out really good. I'm gonna fold this up and over. And again, if the corners get a little wonky, I'm not real worried because they're gonna be covered in paint. And any place that's not staying, just a little extra glue. So that's the corners on the outside. And then that's what they look like on the inside. So I'm gonna flip her over. Same thing, just gonna, well, this one's gonna be a little bulkier on this side, but just manipulate it. You're gonna get sticky fingers. There's no way around it. What is it that, I watch so many people, I think it's Pam at the Paper Post says there are your finger tools. Yeah, if you're making this kind of stuff, you're using finger tools. There's no way around it. You're using those finger tools, and it's okay. Yeah, hopefully I've got enough glue in here. I'm not going to have to open up. Nah, I think it's good. I think I got it. Got it good. Looking good. I did not bring any water over here, and I really do not want to lose this big paintbrush to glue. So as you can see, looks pretty good. A few spots, not bad. Looking pretty good. It's so funny because I get to the point, I'm always like, well, what was the front? What was the back? It doesn't really matter, but that's what I do to myself. So I'm going to go real quick. I think I have a bottle of water over here. I'm going to grab it to stick my brush down into some water. I thought I had myself all, thought I was all prepared, but evidently I was not. So, matter of fact, I'm just going to put the water right in this old glue bottle or container. As long as that brush stays wet, it'll be fine. I'll lay this over here. Okay, so I brought this over because in case you weren't sure what I'm doing, I am doing like the steampunk journal. This is what I'm doing with this cover. I'm just not going to be doing tire tracks, and I don't plan on using any cheesecloth. I'm probably going to throw down just maybe even a few pieces of the, you know, I don't think I am going to do that. I think I'm just going to do a little bit of background. I don't think I'm going to lay any fabric on this. I think I have enough stuff. I think if I put some texture on here, it'll be fine. So I normally do all of my texture on my books with this. I love it. It's Relief Paper Paste. But it has dried up, which is really depressing. I thought I can try anything. I was looking like, what can I do? I'm going to try to put boiling water in this later from the Keurig and see if I can't save it, because I absolutely love this. This was one of my favorite things for collaging, putting texture on papers, and for this process. So I'm going to try something new. I've got modeling paste. So I'm going to try to use this modeling paste. I hope it works. I don't know how long it's going to dry. I'm probably going to have to take a break from the video while it's drying. But on my journal, oh, it doesn't look the same at all, but I think it's going to work. On my last journal I did, of course, I had those tire tracks and stuff. I couldn't find anything that really hit me as sewing. And then I found these little circles and I thought, you know, they're really cute. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put a few of these little circles on there. And I saw these little flowers and these little hearts, and I don't think I want it to be that cute and dainty. So I think it's the circles for sure. And keep in mind, I've not used this one before, but we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to lay it down. I'm going to take my little spatula, and although I don't think this is going to take a while to dry, I bet. And then I'm just going to put this on here and just run it across. Not being real picky. It doesn't have to hit all of it. And I know that may not look like much, but when it comes time to start painting that will definitely show up pretty good. I'm going to scrape some of this off before I lay it back down. I think I'll do a little bit of it right across here. And yeah, I do decorate the spine on these also. I wonder if I should break it up though. Let's start it. Ooh, I think I just got some. Let me break it up so it's not on the crevice or the fold. And what do? I put it right on the fold. Oh well, I'm just gonna wipe some of that out. It doesn't matter. Yeah, if I don't mind it being like, it just adds more texture when I do things like that. Let me see. I've got a smaller one. Let's use the smaller one, and I'm gonna put a little bit right there on the spine. Now, because I do this, I do have to do the spine hidden or inside of the journal. So I'm going to sew my spine down on a piece of canvas, or sew my signatures into a piece of canvas, and then attach the canvas on the inside. And I'll go ahead and do that with you guys. Yeah, I'm also getting my table. I'm sure you probably can't see, but hopefully I have you guys in screen. And again, I don't mind doing this because the more texture in the background, the more it picks things up. It looks really neat. So I'm sure this looks like a hot mess, but it really works. And I've not used this for this purpose before. So I'm not 100% sure how long it's going to take to dry. I'll read the jar in a moment and we'll see. I don't want to put too much here because I think I'm going to do a lot more of the design here than anywhere else. So I want to make sure I leave some space for that. Just an occasional area with some dots. And again, as you can see, I'm getting it all over the place. It doesn't matter. It'll be fine. It was last time. I got it everywhere and things worked out just fine. I think I only want a little drop of them right here. I think that's going to be it. So that is the first part. Go wash those. And I'm going to let this dry. I'm not criticizing people who do, but I don't use the hair dryers and things that everybody else uses. I just don't. So on the modeling piece, oh, it doesn't say. So it says in thin layers, it'll crack. Well, hopefully those are thin enough. I don't know. Oh, some of these might be a little bigger. That's okay. If it cracks, we'll make it work. I've just never used this, like I said, so we'll just see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and stop filming because there's no point until this is dry. And then I'll pop back on when I'm ready to do the next part of this. Okay, I'm back. It's not completely dry, but it dried a lot quicker than I expected. And the more I'm thinking about this, when I start placing all of these items on here, I feel like if I don't get more texture underneath of it, it makes it look flat. Almost like I just decided to start gluing things. I don't know. I just feel like it needs something else under it, some more texture. When I did the steampunk one, texture-wise, I had the tire prints and I had the cheesecloth, and I don't really like the cheesecloth with this. So I feel like before I start gluing all these on, I really need to add another layer of texture. And I learned my lesson that the art glitter glue is not the best for painting. So I'm definitely going to use the gel matte to put some things on. So I kept thinking about it and I thought, well, what would work? And I decided lace. So I started pulling out lace and also strings. I like how that string looks under there. And if I take the paintbrush over top of this, I can feel it. Even with my finger, I can feel that bump. So after I color this solid and I go over with all the rubbing gels, all the little gels, those are going to pop up and come through. So I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and put some lace on it. And also, I think I'm going to just lay some string down. I think that's going to work. And so I've got some lace I'm just going to put on here. And again, because this gel medium is made for acrylic paint, it paints over really nice. I've not had any trouble with it when I've used it. And I'm going to get this a little bit thick. Not too thick, just a little bit. And I'm going to start putting down this lace and working it into the lace. But I don't want it so into the lace that the texture doesn't come through, because that's part of it. I feel like it needs more texture before I start putting all those embellishments on. So I don't want to lose the texture with all of this paste. So I want to kind of get a base low, make sure it's got a good base coat underneath of it. And then I'm going to work that in. Now, I will tell you that even when I did the embellishments, I went through with a dry brush afterwards and started working it out of little crevices. Because, you know, if this matte gel is sticking in all the little crevices, when I go to paint, those crevices aren't going to show up because they'll be filled. So it's a little bit of work because you do have to get it into each of those. Make sure it's in there, make sure it's saturating the fabric, but then you have to go back through and make sure it's out of all those little bumps so that there's still texture. So if I turn it, I guess, I don't know, sideways, or I can still see the texture in there. And I started using this matte gel. I got this idea from Mike Deakin. I've also ordered, he did the coolest thing. Him and Ian have a kit right now, and Ian is introducing the kit over so many weeks. I think one part of it a week, and it's the seasons. And I think it's 5 kits, and then all seasons, and then the last one is it's nature themed. But and it's good, believe me, I like all of it. I don't want to say any part of either Mike or Ian's is better, or, you know, because it's equally cool. I like all of it. But what I noticed, and I don't know which one of them designed it, so I guess it doesn't matter. But it comes, you can order the book base, and it's cut out of almost like the stuff that I think of old clipboards. The kind of stuff at the back of that little, almost like wood type stuff. I can't remember what it's called. It's like MD something, or I don't know. It is so phenomenal. I watched the first video. I'll link it on here. If I don't link it when I put this first out, it'll eventually be there because it's really good. I went ahead and ordered it. I ordered the book from them. I don't know when I'll get it because it's coming from over the pond. And we know that mail since COVID has been insane, but it will be coming. And I'm going to design my own book using it, and it is so neat. Even the spine has holes pre-cut in the spine, and you don't have to use all the holes. It's enough for 5 signatures and either a 3 or 5 pamphlet hole stitch. It is so cool. I'm in love with it. I cannot wait to get it. I can't wait to use it. But yeah, it was him. I first got the idea of doing the steampunk with the embellishments from him, but he used, I think, embellishments that he makes with an epoxy or something. I used, and then I saw someone else's video and they used these, and I like both methods, don't get me wrong. This just happens to be a little more easier to get and it's a little more affordable for me. And I think he makes some of his, or his friends make them, but they're really nice. So all I'm doing is adding texture so that when I put all of those sewing embellishments on here, and I start painting everything, there's a texture underneath. And yeah, they're sticking really good. They're not going anywhere. So I just felt like it needed just one more something or other. I don't know. Just something other than just those little dots and then all the sewing embellishments. And I thought the lace was perfect for a sewing style video. Well, that's interesting. I almost didn't want to stick onto the where I use the matte medium, which is odd. It should. I think it's all pretty similar. The products are all meant to work together. Oh, there it is. It's sticking fine now. So I'm just going to continue doing this, and I might speed through this. I might stop the video here. I'm going to call this part 1. Next part, I'm going to put the large embellishments on, and I'm going to paint it and probably do some end papers. This video is just getting too long, and there's going to be a lot of these sewing videos because I am doing 4 different journals. I'm going to be doing this one, which is just a basic sewing themed journal. And then I'm going to do a needle book, which will be for me. And it's literally going to be for me to keep my needles in, because I do so many things between quilting. I'm doing a 12-month journal where each of the first signatures has some embroidery work on it. So that's kind of cool. But I'm, again, using more needles. I use them to sew in pages and books. I just felt like I needed a needle book, and I'm even going to put my sewing machine needles in there. So I'm a little excited about that. So that's going to be my personal one. So I'm going to be making this one the theme that's just sewing theme in general. I'm going to make one that's my needle book. And then I found these online, and it seems like no one makes them anymore, but I'm in love. And they are, I think they're called trim or lace books. They are the coolest thing. And if I have my lace in front of me, let me see, I think I do right here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. They are basically books where you have these little spindles sticking up, and they become your signatures, and they are covered in lace. Wonderful. So I'm going to be making one of those, and then I'm going to make a fabric covered one sewing journal with an antique quilt that I just recently got a hold of. Quite beautiful, but it needs saved, and the only thing I'm thinking of saving it is because it's really in bad shape, is to make a journal out of it. And that one, I'm going to make the signatures first 2 or 3 pages are going to be fabric, and they're going to be fabric pockets, and they're going to have scissors and sewing notions and things like that in them. And then the center pages, there'll probably be like 6 to 8 pages, are going to be a journal, and they'll have tucky spots and stuff, and that'll be the ideas part, so you can put your sewing ideas in there. So I'm really excited about it because the way I've worked it out, I'm going to be using different methods of binding, different methods of making our cover. So again, it's giving me the opportunity to figure out exactly what's my favorite, what am I going to spend most of my time doing with journaling and all. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to glue down a few more pieces of lace here and there. And I'm going to let this dry and probably wait till tomorrow before I do anything else with it. So that'll probably be part 2. I imagine there's going to be, with this book, probably 3 or 4 parts. And considering I'm doing 4 sewing themed journals, there's going to be easily 10 to 12 parts to this series. And I'm just going to call it like my sewing journal series. So hopefully I'm inspiring you. If you have any ideas, any suggestions, any links, anything you've done you want to show me, just let me know. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Personally, it's snowing. I don't know. I'm going to try to turn you to see the snow. Let's see if we can do it. Oh, yeah, you can see it a little bit. So it is snowing here in West Virginia. So if you're getting some snow, definitely enjoy. And like I said, part 2 will be me putting on the embellishments, painting it, and putting in some end papers. Have a great evening.